who needs a general contractor, you need Texas Home Property Solution. Take a decisive step and call us today for a free consultation.
Taking a trip in the next 12 months? Airlines are under tremendous pressure and they're practically giving away their unsold seats. Like every crisis, this one will end too. But right now is the best time to take advantage of giveaway ticket prices on their unsold seats. We're not allowed to publish these low fares online. The only way to get these rock bottom giveaway prices is to call. So phone low-cost airlines now for airline ticket prices you may never see again.
Hi there and welcome. I'm Dr. Denise Brown and we are excited for a fabulous episode of Disruptive Health. Today we are in luck because we are joined by Dr. Nathan Bryan, who is one of the world's leading experts on nitric oxide. Dr. Bryan, welcome to the show.
Dr. Brown, thanks for having me. Great to be with you.
I'm excited because here's the deal. Not many people even know what nitric oxide is,
Right.
what it can do for you, how to get more of it, and I'm really excited to dive into that on today's episode.
Yeah. Well, you know, nitric oxide is one of these molecules it's a relatively new discovery in science and medicine. It's really only discovered about 35, 40 years ago. And we know it takes, on average, about 17 years for new discoveries to become standard of care. So that's why I think there's a slow infiltration and awareness around this. But nitric oxide is a naturally produced molecule. It's produced in the lining of the blood vessels, produced in our neurons in the brain. It's produced by our immune cells. But it's a signaling molecule. It's a gas that when it's produced, it's gone in less than a second, but it signals, its primary signaling is telling the blood vessels to relax and dilate. So when we dilate blood vessels, we get better perfusion, better oxygen, nutrient delivery to every organ, tissue, and cell in the body. It's a neurotransmitter in the central nervous system. It's important in long-term memory potentiation, in cognition, in memory recall. And as I mentioned, it's important in how our immune cells fight off invading pathogens. So it's produced when we have an infection or some type of injury, and it's part of the acute inflammatory response. So when you lose the ability to make nitric oxide, there are a lot of things that go wrong, right? We get high blood pressure, we become immunocompromised, we develop vascular dementia, and eventually Alzheimer's. So it's very important for people to understand what their nitric oxide production capacity is. If they're compromised, take steps to restore the production of this molecule.
That's amazing. I mean, when you think to yourself that one little molecule could have such a tremendous impact on the entire body, it kind of blows the mind that, like, here we are just now talking about it, I feel like. Why do you think there's hesitation in pursuing new things? I mean, we've got a show called Disruptive Health on purpose, right? What is it about medicine, I guess, that makes the sort of adaptation of new things so slow? I mean, you said it's 17 or more years. Why do you think that is?
Well, it starts in the basic sciences, right? Trying to understand the mechanism of disease to where you can basically start to design rational therapies to interrupt that disease process. But I think most basic science doesn't translate into clinical medicine because a mouse is different than cell culture is different than a human, right? So discoveries in basic science and preclinical models very rarely translate into human medicine. And so number one, we have to go through the rigor of figuring out a mechanism. And then there's this whole thought process of one target, one drug, right? So if we want to inhibit a particular biochemical reaction that's involved in the disease process, then typically big drug companies develop a synthetic compound that inhibits that particular pathway. What we do in terms of nitric oxide is completely different because it's a deficiency of this molecule that leads to chronic disease. So we need to figure out how to restore and replete the production and signaling of this molecule, not inhibit its production, but replete and restore its production. And I think this is a brand new kind of signaling molecule. In fact, a Nobel Prize was awarded in 1998 for the discovery of nitric oxide because the Nobel Assembly realized that this is a completely new paradigm in signal transduction. that the production, the signal by a gas that penetrates one cell into another is a completely new signaling paradigm. So I think the process of this has been slow, because how do you recapitulate the production of a gas that when it's produced naturally in the body is gone in less than a second? And I think that's why the development around drugs has been so slow, and really how we're starting to disrupt this process and get safe and effective drugs on the market.
Well, it's actually really cool because, for all of the viewers out there, you're sitting with a scientist. He may look like a handsome guy, but he's also a scientist. And so what you've been able to do is take that science from the bench and actually come up with ways to kind of help augment people's health. And that's an unusual place. How did you sort of get to be where you're at?
Well, I started in the nitric oxide field shortly after the Nobel Prize was awarded. So we knew it was an important molecule. We knew it had extreme importance, therapeutic value. But I think, and I've thought a little bit differently, and I think that's what allowed us to do what we've done, what no one else has been able to do. But this whole bench to bedside type philosophy on basic science doesn't work. Right? It really, you have to go from bedside to the bench, figure out the mechanism, and then start to interrogate these pathways, and then go back to bedside. So what I like to do is take important clinical observations and then work backwards, figure out mechanism of action, and then start to develop rational therapies and then take it back to the bedside. But we were the first and only people to make a solid dose form of nitric oxide gas, because prior to our discoveries, you could only deliver nitric oxide in an inpatient setting. And really the only FDA-approved indication is neonates or premature babies with pulmonary hypertension. So how do you deliver this bioactive gas at a therapeutic level in an outpatient setting that people could do that? So that's kind of the riddle that we solved. So we make a solid dose form of nitric oxide gas. We figured out how to capture this molecule in topical applications, which we're developing for topical drugs for diabetic ulcers, non-healing wounds, and then the oral drugs for things like ischemic heart disease, Alzheimer's. Really, the amount of nitric oxide that we're delivering, I don't see an indication where nitric oxide would not be beneficial.
It seems like nobody probably has too much.
Well, there's dose dictates poison.
Sure.
So there is an upper limit, but those are very well-defined signs of toxicity. There's something called methemoglobinemia, which it oxidizes the hemoglobin of heme and reduces the oxygen carrying capacity of the red blood cells. So you become cyanotic, blue around the lips. But those are whopping doses.
Gotcha.
So that's one sign of toxicity. The other is an unsafe drop in blood pressure. So if you take too much, you can get systemic vasodilation, you lose perfusion pressure, and first sign and symptom is syncope. You'll get lightheadedness and may even pass out just because of loss of perfusion pressure. But the doses that are toxic are very well defined, and we stay far below the doses of toxicity, and we deliver nitric oxide that's not only safe, but it's very effective in many different indications.
That's really cool. I mean, the idea that you could sort of help to stimulate your blood vessels to allow more blood flow to all of your entire body, particularly the areas that suffer, like the heart or the brain or the feet, for example, in diabetes. It's really just amazing that you've been able to figure out how to do that with a tablet. And we're going to get into more detail on what that actually looks like. You said, though, it's a naturally occurring substance. How does like a normal healthy body make it? Is it something from your mouth? Is it something from where does it come from?
Well, today we understand there are two primary pathways that the human body makes nitric oxide. One is in the lining of the blood vessel. So there's an enzyme that's found in our neurons, in our brain, it's found in our blood vessels. So the enzyme that's found in the blood vessels is obviously found in every organ, because every organ is supplied by an adequate supply of blood vessels. So this enzyme converts an amino acid called L-arginine into nitric oxide. So that's really responsible for the second-to-second regulation of perfusion, of blood pressure, and regulating blood flow upon demand. And then the other pathway, which we discovered about 20 years ago, was through the presence of oral bacteria. And this explains the benefits of certain dietary patterns, right? A vegetarian diet or a Japanese diet or dietary approaches to stop hypertension. These bacteria are responsible for converting inorganic nitrate, which is found primarily in green leafy vegetables, into nitric oxide gas. And then when we swallow our saliva, we get a burst of nitric oxide. So now this pathway, you can intervene dietarily and through capturing the activity of the oral microbiome.
That's actually amazing when you think about the blue zones and whatnot and all these healthy diets. Sardinia, Japan, Costa Rica, it may be that nitric oxide is actually the key to a lot of that. And because it's stimulated by particular diets. That's actually really interesting.
Well, there's starting to be a clear mechanism of action of the blue zones. What allows people to live, and it's multifactorial, right? There's not a silver bullet. There's not a single. What we're finding is it is their diet. It's that they're not exposed to a lot of toxins and really, Western practices that are destroying endothelial function and destroying the microbiome. So things like mouthwash, fluoride toothpaste, antacids, some drug therapy completely shut down nitric oxide production. But in these blue zones, they're not exposed to toxins, they're eating a good diet, they have a sense of community, they're active, and really it's that combination of many things that allow for longevity.
That's amazing. It makes me want to, first of all, it makes me want to go to Costa Rica. It also makes me want to eat more plants, which I suppose we should all do. So if someone really wanted to then kind of augment their ability, the most sort of significant thing that they could do is to sort of make some dietary adjustments then.
Well, I think it's, the science of nitric oxide is very complex, but I think the solutions are starting to be pretty
straightforward.
Pretty straightforward. And so I tell people all the time, you got to do two things. Stop doing the things that disrupt it and start doing the things that promote it. So we can take those one by one. So what's disrupting nitric oxide production? It's really the Western diet, really the Western lifestyle, and sedentary lifestyle. We have to move. Moving, exercise stimulates the release of nitric oxide in the lining of the blood vessels. So stop using mouthwash. As we mentioned earlier, if you use mouthwash, it completely destroys the oral microbiome. And it's similar to taking an antibiotic every day. I mean, we know we don't do that, and there's a reason we don't do that, because it completely destroys the microbiome. And these bacteria that live in and on our body are doing things to help the human host. It's a symbiotic relationship. So using mouthwash destroys the microbiome, disrupts nitric oxide production. We see an increase in blood pressure, and you lose the protective benefits of exercise. And then fluoride is an antiseptic, and most toothpaste contain fluoride, so you have to remove fluoride. And then the other big culprit in inhibiting nitric oxide production are antacids, specifically what we call proton pump inhibitors. And these shut down nitric oxide production in the lining of the blood vessels, and they shut down nitric oxide production through this enterosalivary circuit and the nitric oxide. So those drugs, now again, if you take important clinical observations, we know that these drugs, people who have been on these for 3 to 5 years have a 30% higher incidence of heart attack, stroke, and 40% higher incidence of Alzheimer's. And the reason for that is because it's completely shutting down nitric oxide production.
That's amazing. So 2 really easy things that we can do.
And it's cost savings.
Yeah, my goodness. Well, that's kind of exceptional, because I think there are a lot of people out there who just kind of go with the flow, have no idea, swig around a little mouthwash, feel fresh for later, and little do they know that they're having a potential disruption in a super important cascade across their entire body.
Well, it's 2 out of 3 Americans wake up and use mouthwash every morning, and 2 out of 3 Americans have an unsafe elevation in blood pressure. So wow. I don't think it's coincidental. We published a paper in 2019 showing that use of mouthwash is causal for an increase in blood pressure due to the disruption of the oral microbiome.
No more mouthwash for me.
No more mouthwash.
All right. So that's actually amazing. There's 2 things that you can do to help increase the amount of nitric oxide that you have in your body, and they both seem pretty straightforward. We're going to be right back after a brief commercial break.
Are you nearly maxed out on your credit cards? It doesn't matter if you're using your credit cards for fun or to survive. At the end of the month, your statements come in, and you can either pay them or you can't. If you can't, late fees and interest rates get tacked on. And now you're struggling just to make the minimum payment due. Do you feel trapped? Am I talking to you? Good, because I personally researched some companies that can help you. They may be able to reduce your credit card balances by 50% and stop the late fees. If you qualify, please call our special debt hotline number right now for a complimentary free 5-minute consultation. Deal with your credit card problem now before it gets much worse and put more money back in your pocket. Trust me, I've been there too. Call right now.
Call 855-993-2096 right now.
That's 855-993-2096.
If you're on supplemental oxygen, heavy and awkward tanks can be a burden. Now you can leave home and leave the tanks behind with Inogen, portable oxygen therapy that moves with you.
With my Inogen, now I'm able to do the things that I've always loved. I just press the button here, and there's my oxygen.
Inogen systems are so small and light, you're free to leave the house without the hassles of an oxygen tank.
I could play golf again. I could go grocery shopping. I'm free again.
With the Inogen, I can handle my own oxygen. I can carry my own oxygen. I go anywhere with this. Look how small it is.
And right now, you can try an Inogen portable oxygen system for 30 days risk-free. Call us right now. If you qualify, we'll send you an Inogen system to use for 30 days risk-free. Your insurance may even cover your new Inogen system.
If you're on oxygen, you need to be using an Inogen.
Call 800-367-1753. That's 800-367-1753.
Welcome back to Disruptive Health. I'm Dr. Denise Brown, and I am absolutely thrilled to have Dr. Brian joining me here in the studio to talk about nitric oxide. What we're going to focus on next is the absolutely critical impact that nitric oxide has on our cardiovascular health and what we can do to help make our bodies as healthy as we possibly can, and things that we should look out for as we sort of go about the aging process, if you will. So, Dr. Brian, tell me, we've talked a little bit about what happens with nitric oxide and how blood vessels dilate.
Okay.
Explain to our viewers what that actually means, and then what we can do to kind of encourage the best heart and vascular health we can.
Sure. Well, nitric oxide produced in the lining of the blood vessels is what regulates blood flow and perfusion and really the elasticity or the arterial compliance. So if you have sufficient nitric oxide, then the blood vessels are soft and compliant, and they dampen that pulse wave with each heartbeat. And adequate nitric oxide actually prevents the onset and progression of cardiovascular disease, which is the #1 killer of men and women worldwide, still today. And mechanistically, we know how that is. So the nitric oxide produced in the lining of the blood vessel prevents platelets, prevents monocytes and neutrophils, immune cells from sticking to the lining of the blood vessel, and actually prevents lipid transport across the blood vessels. And that's what leads to plaque deposition, plaque instability, and plaque rupture, which is the whole sequence of events that leads to either heart attack, myocardial infarction, or stroke if it happens in the cerebral arteries.
So nitric oxide allows the blood vessels to relax, which
That's
allows the pressure to flow more smoothly. And when that happens, all of these other things don't occur, like cholesterol plaques or platelets or plaque formation. Is that
That's
what
right.
you're saying?
That's right.
And that happens all over the body, not just in the heart. It happens in the arms and the legs and in the brain.
That's right.
Okay.
The endothelium and the endothelial cells is really considered the largest organ, right? It's a single layer of cells that line all blood vessels throughout the body. And it's the function of that endothelial cell that produces nitric oxide, maintains the barrier function, and maintains the expression of adhesion molecules, or downregulates them. So as long as you have sufficient nitric oxide production, you don't get any of the downstream effects that lead to cardiovascular disease. And in fact, the functional loss of nitric oxide in the lining of the blood vessel precedes the structural changes we see in patients with cardiovascular disease or ischemic heart disease by many years, sometimes decades.
Interesting. So it would be like you've got a room in your house, and you've got the sort of framing, and then you have the sheetrock, and then you have the plaster, and now you've got paint, and that top coat of paint is kind of helps withstand splashes or this or
That's
that.
right.
And that's basically what nitric oxide is doing on the inside of our blood vessels.
That's right. It's protecting anything underneath the blood vessel.
Okay.
And that's where cardiovascular disease starts, right? You get hyperplasia, you get smooth muscle proliferation, and then the lumen of the blood vessel starts to become closed. And that's stenosis and obstruction, obstructive coronary disease, which leads to, compromised blood flow to the heart, the ischemic pain known as angina. And so that whole process, we understand without a doubt the mechanism of cardiovascular disease. We certainly know how to diagnose it. Now the question is, how do we treat it? And I think it's not a lack of information, it's the application of that new science in the clinical practice.
It's actually amazing, because what you're proposing is sort of the ultimate in prevention, really. So a lot of our sort of modern medicine focuses on it's already happened. The blood vessel is already narrow, so we can open it up. Or my cholesterol is already high, I take a pill to make it lower. Or my blood pressure is. What you're saying is, if we are very conscious about what our nitric oxide is, we don't have to do any of those things because they only happen once that nitric oxide level's low.
That's right. Well, I think we can all appreciate medicine today is a reactive practice. People only take action or go to a doctor once they develop symptoms or get sick, or the first sign of a heart disease in many patients is sudden cardiac death, and then it's certainly too late. So what we're finding is that if you can prevent the age-related loss of nitric oxide production, you can prevent not just cardiovascular disease, but really many age-related disease. So we have to understand the production of this critical molecule and then employ strategies to restore it. And again, as we talked about earlier, you got to stop doing the things that disrupt it and then start doing the things that promote it. And if we can, what the basic science, and I think what we're translating now into clinical medicine, is if you can maintain adequate production of nitric oxide, then it really leads to the ultimate goal, and that's disease prevention.
That's absolutely amazing. So let's talk a little bit about how all these things are connected. I think a lot of times people think like, oh, I have a heart attack, or oh, I had a stroke, or oh, I have an ulcer on my toe, and think of those things as different disease processes. But it's all really one disease process. It's the disease of the blood vessel.
Absolutely.
It just depends on where it's at.
There's a vascular component to every single known disease. And there's really the infinite number of insults we give to our body every day, whether it's the food we eat, the toxins we're exposed to. The body always responds with 3 finite responses. It increases inflammation, oxidative stress, and immune dysfunction. And nitric oxide is what controls and regulates all of those. So if we can restore nitric oxide, we can dilate the blood vessels, we inhibit inflammation, we prevent oxidative stress, and we mitigate the immune dysfunction you see in any chronic disease. So whether it's heart attack, obviously it's an obstruction and a plaque rupture in the coronary arteries, a stroke, ischemic stroke, same thing, or in diabetic ulcers, it's lack of blood flow to the extremities. And so what does nitric oxide do? It opens up the blood vessels, and you now start perfusing every organ, tissue, and cell in the body. So it's really considered the holy grail in cardiovascular medicine. In fact, when the Nobel Prize was awarded in '98, Val Fuster, who was president of the American Heart Association, was famously quoted as saying that nitric oxide is the most important discovery in the history of cardiovascular medicine. And that was 26 years ago, and I think today that quote still holds true.
It sure sounds like it. Okay, so is there a point where the horses run out of the barn? I mean, if I've been using mouthwash and fluoride toothpaste all my life, is it too late for me, or are there things that I can sort of do right now?
No, remarkably, in terms of the microbiome, we know that these bacteria are really resilient. And in our 2019 paper, we published that if you stop for at least 4 days, then these microbiome, the bacteria, completely repopulate and we can restore nitric oxide production. And we actually have evidence in patients with advanced coronary artery disease where you already get some stenosis and plaque deposition. We see about 11% plaque regression within 6 months. So not only can we treat with nitric oxide technology, we can actually reverse and regress disease, and that's really good news for people. So to answer your question, it's never too late. Although I should say, I think there's a process in every disease where there's really a point of no return. But I think if we can catch this early enough and really start to make people aware of nitric oxide and start to be conscious of what they're doing that disrupt it, and then employ these strategies to restore it, then certainly we can prevent the onset, and best case, we can even regress disease.
Walk that back. Okay, so there are ways that we can do it inherently in our own bodies. We've talked about that. Are there other ways to supplement outside of that? You mentioned you were one of the first people to be able to have a solid tablet.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Like, what can I do beyond the mouthwash and the medications?
Well, yeah, the first thing is always, change your diet, change your lifestyle, and let's give the body what it needs and let the body do its job, right? Sometimes we just got to get out of its way.
So true.
But, understanding, so my whole purpose was, let's understand how the human body makes nitric oxide, understand what goes wrong in people that can't make it, and then let's give it back at doses that recapitulate nitric oxide production. So years ago, I made a solid dose form of nitric oxide gas. It's an orally disintegrating tablet. You put it in your mouth, and it dissolves over 5 to 6 minutes. But as it's dissolving, we're releasing nitric oxide gas at levels that recapitulate nitric oxide signaling, endogenous signaling. So our whole thought was, If your body can't make nitric oxide, then we got to do it for you. But we have to fix the reason your body can't. We have to restore the oral microbiome. We've got to restore the function of the enzyme in the lining of the blood vessel. And really, that's what this technology does.
So we can do both.
We can do both.
And if someone was going to take a nitric oxide supplement, would that be something they would do indefinitely, or is it a kind of a short-term, sort of treatment regimen? How does that work?
Well, I think what we're finding is that the world we live in is so toxic that we almost need a daily nitric oxide boost. And it's similar, and it's personalized medicine, right? Everybody's different. It's if not impossible to do a one-size-fits-all. But I think for good measure, what we're learning, and I've been doing this for the past 20 years, is I take a nitric oxide every day for the past 20 years. It's not because I need it, it's because I don't want to need it, right? So it's kind of like if you're taking your daily vitamin C, what do you do? Or your daily magnesium or vitamin D. We do it because this is what the body normally does, and if the body doesn't have what it needs, then the body suffers.
I love it. Instead of an apple a day, it's a nitric oxide tablet
lozenge.
a day.
That's right.
Keeps the doctor away. That sounds pretty good to me. Do you take it in the morning or at nighttime? I'm curious.
I typically take it in the morning. Obviously, we want to get up in the morning, have good blood flow, good oxygenation, and get the cardiovascular system working so it sets the rest of your day.
Sets the tone.
Yeah. And as we know, in people that are at risk, most heart attacks happen before 10 a.m.
First thing
in the morning. So
That's
I think
right.
it's good to have that protection on board. For
Yeah,
sure.
you think about the cortisol spikes, all these things are kind of happening in the morning, and you can sort of help offset that with one little nitric oxide tablet that dissolves under your tongue. It's absolutely magic. It really is. I can imagine there's all sorts of other impacts on longevity, on dementia, which is really a vascular disease of the brain, and to be able to kind of put those all together. I mean, you're saving lives left, right, and center.
Well, if you look at longevity, there's three main objectives of longevity. It's telomeres, the end of our chromosomes, shorter telomeres, shorter lifespan. There's stem cells. We're constantly wearing our cells out. We just got to repair and replace dysfunctional cells. And then there's mitochondrium, the energy-producing organelles of the cell. And nitric oxide controls and regulates all this, prevents telomere shortening, mobilizes stem cells, and improves mitochondrial function. So it's what we call the unified theory of aging. And so we have to understand the production of this molecule and make sure your body's producing it.
Well, I feel like you have given us some tools to do exactly that, and we're deeply appreciative for it. And I hope that you have all learned plenty about nitric oxide, what you can do to help increase your production. And then if you want to check out Dr. Brian, I encourage you to take a look at his website. It lists all of his different scientific contributions, papers, you name it. He's given so much to the field, and he's given so much to us here today. So I really appreciate your time, and I hope we'll see you here again sometime on another episode of Disruptive Health. Thanks, y'all.
Taking a trip in the next 12 months? Airlines are under tremendous pressure and they're practically giving away their unsold seats. Like every crisis, this one will end too. But right now is the best time to take advantage of giveaway ticket prices on their unsold seats. We're not allowed to publish these low fares online. The only way to get these rock bottom giveaway prices is to call. So phone low-cost airlines now for airline ticket prices you may never see again.
If you're on supplemental oxygen, heavy and awkward tanks can be a burden. Now you can leave home and leave the tanks behind with Inogen, portable oxygen therapy that moves with you.
With my Inogen, now I'm able to do the things that I've always loved. I just press the button here, and there's my oxygen.
Inogen systems are so small and light, you're free to leave the house without the hassles of an oxygen tank.
I could play golf again. I could go grocery shopping. I'm free again.
With the Inogen, I can handle my own oxygen. I can carry my own oxygen. I go anywhere with this. Look how small it is.
And right now, you can try an Inogen portable oxygen system for 30 days risk-free. Call us right now. If you qualify, we'll send you an Inogen system to use for 30 days risk-free. Your insurance may even cover your new Inogen system.
If you're on oxygen, you need to be using an Inogen.
Call 800-367-1753. That's 800-367-1753.
How How would you like to go on a 5-star vacation for just $99? We're talking about the quality of a Westgate resort for $99. Not for one night, but for 3 fantastic nights at one of their luxurious destinations across the United States. And you'll even get a free $100 Visa gift card just for making a reservation. We've got some of the choicest destinations that you'll love in the United States that you can choose from for just $99 for a 3-night stay. Take your family, take a special loved one, but get away. Go on vacation with Westgate Resorts. Call now to make a reservation for just $99 and you get a free $100 Visa gift card. Call Westgate right now and book your vacation. Here's the number.
Call 877-930-3491. That's 877-930-3491. Again, 877-930-3491.
And welcome back to Disruptive Health. I'm Dr. Denise Brown, and now joining me in the studio is Jennifer Hobson. We're very excited to talk to Jennifer about diets and what restrictive diets can mean for you, and more importantly, what you can do to avoid them. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Denise. I appreciate it.
So you are the owner and CEO of Shine Up Coaching, and tell me a little bit about the challenges that you work with your clients on facing.
Absolutely. So to give you a little background about where I even came from and how I got to that, I grew up very connected to health and wellness. My mom even owned a gym for women while I was in college, which is a place that I worked. And my journey eventually brought me to health and wellness and changing my own health journey as well as my family's, and gave me the opportunity to bring my knowledge to my clients. And the biggest thing that I have seen, I've now been actively doing this for just over 7 years, is that people think there's a quick fix, right? They want the special pill, the magic powder, the special one-day drink, and they think that's going to solve all their problems. And at the heart of it, the solution to health and wellness is one word. It's habits. And habits are really the building block of how you can change your relationship, not only with food, but your relationship with movement, with mindset, with gut health. And that's truly, truly the basic building block for health and wellness to me.
And habits are hard to break, let's be honest. Speaking about just, a friend told me once, but do you have a sort of predictable, rational kind of protocol approach to sort of re-engaging in healthy habits? And what does that look like for the people with whom you work?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's always a place to start. And first of all, you have to figure out what are your current habits before you can create the new ones. And a lot of times, like you said, habits are hard to break. Well, a lot of times we don't even realize the day-to-day habits that we've created over time. And at this point, we're not even aware of them, right? It's very similar to you get up in the morning, you brush your teeth. You don't have to usually think about brushing your teeth because it's become such a lifelong habit. So that's actually where we start that building block, and we create the new pathways really in the brain to create those new habits. So we have to take the time, and I usually work one-on-one with those clients, and we go, okay, let's identify what are the habits now that are getting in your way. And that way we can now establish the brand new habits. So, all right, the thing that's getting in your way is when you're making breakfast for your kids, you're automatically giving them the things that you used to have as a kid and you thought were quote unquote healthy, right? They're having bagels, they're having waffles, they're having pancakes, and we're carb loading in the beginning of the day because that's what I've been taught. Not realizing maybe we can start the day with protein. So we look at all the things that are already established, and then we slowly start to create those new habits. And it's not going to be all or nothing, right? We don't start the program and go, all right, we're going to create 85 new habits. We're going to start with one. What's the one easy thing that we can change? All right, we can change and have a protein-filled breakfast. We're going to do that for a couple weeks. And then we're going to start to stack the habits. And I love habit stacking. It's one of the most effective things I've introduced to clients.
How long does it take before a new thing that you're learning, we can call it a habit? Is there kind of a typical time span for that?
I think that's like the age-old question, Denise. I think everybody asks. There's so many books and journals on it. What I have found for my clients, 30 days is just the introductory period, right? 30 days is you're figuring out what the habit is, how it works best in your day-to-day, and that's laying the groundwork. For me, the sweet spot of actually creating a habit is 90 days. And that's my personal experience with clients, with myself. There are different thoughts about it, but it's that idea. If you think of the brain, your old habits have worn this really, really worn down path. That's why they're so created. We take 90 days and we're on repetition, we're starting to create those new neural pathways in the brain that lead to, the cognitive habits that you're just automatically doing.
I love that. So instead of kind of trying to do everything all at once, which I think is the classic, New Year's Day kind of, and I'm going to lose weight, and I'm going to go walking, and I'm going to do this, you're really advocating a very kind of rational, diligent approach to kind of fixing things sort of one or two at a time, and being really mindful about that. And I think that's actually really exciting, because sometimes I think when you're trying to make change, change is hard, and it's very easy to feel, quickly overwhelmed. What advice would you give to someone when, it isn't magic and it does take time? Are there certain tips you have for us?
That I always kind of fall back on are, it's not all or nothing. And that's a really big one. I think, like you had said, a lot of people, it's that January kind of let's go gung ho. And what happens is they go all in for 7 days and the scale hasn't changed. And they start to get, kind of frustrated, and they wanted that immediate, it's even like with business, it's with so many things, it's the consistent daily action. And a lot of people that start health journeys or diet journeys think that I have to work out for an hour and a half every single day. You know what makes a bigger impact? Instead of working out for an hour and a half and then you're so drained that you don't work out for another 7 days, is start with 15 minutes. And 15 minutes sounds so basic, but if you can do 15 minutes consistently for 30 days, that's going to be more success. And the other thing that I always rely on with clients is it's progress, not perfection. If we feel the need to be perfect at anything we've just started, we've already shot ourselves in the foot. It's just like learning, a new skill. You might feel frustrated the first time you don't get it because you're not perfect at it, because we've told ourselves, well, I should just get, because I'm an adult, I should know how to do this. And it's the same thing with your health and wellness journey. Just because you enjoyed a cocktail on Thursday doesn't mean you have to wait all the way till Monday to restart your health and wellness journey.
I like that. I think incremental progress is still forward progress, right? And
exactly.
Yeah, sometimes you think, oh, I have to do all of this all at once, and then it's really easy to just stay on the couch.
Yeah, a lot of people, it's always the next Monday effect. And that happens a lot of times when people have and I don't really like the word diet, has the word die in it for a reason. I really like, what are you fueling your body with? But we always Monday it, right? I'm gonna start my new health and wellness journey. You have all that excitement like you do in January. You start on Monday, and then you forgot there was a work event on Tuesday, and you were busy on Wednesday, so you forgot to meal prep. And Thursday is Thirsty Thursday, and Friday you're just so exhausted from the week, you're pretending the weekend doesn't exist, and I'm gonna next Monday it. And it's a very classic, very common thing that we all have, and we have to stop setting these parameters that we can't start exactly where we left off.
I appreciate that, because it almost feels like, well, then why bother? But I think what you're suggesting is, hey, 15 minutes is better than nothing, and that, why make it so hard on yourself? I really appreciate that approach. I'm always laughing at these memes that say, oh, I had a kale salad for lunch, and I had a this and that, and then at 10 o'clock, I had a gallon of ice cream. We're awfully hard on ourselves, aren't we?
We love to shame and should all over ourselves. We love to play the should game. What I should be doing, what I should be eating, what I should be working out. And the words that I really focus on with clients are taking away perfect, taking away what you should be doing, how you should be showing up for yourself. Another way, you have to find intentional time to work on that journey on yourself. And shame game is just the blame game that just ends in guilt.
It seems like a great mindset. All right, let's hear your thoughts on cheat days.
I despise the word cheat.
So do I.
and I was like, I'm gonna be blunt with you. I despise the word cheat. I grew up with, you have a negative connotation with the word cheat. Cheating is doing something wrong, and words are very important. So how you speak to yourself is also important. And I just call them enjoyment meals. Like, it's something that gives me joy. Maybe it's not there because I'm going to do a workout after, but you know what? It gave me a good emotion. The biggest part about it is some people do cheat meals and still feel guilty afterwards. They think that by saying cheat, it's going to let go of the guilt. And what ends up happening, your brain, cheat is synonymous with negative, and it just doesn't work that way. So food is food. There's no good food. There's no bad food. There's food that fuels us. I actually just had this conversation with my almost 9-year-old. There's no good food. There's no bad food. Food is food. There's food that fuels us. There's food that we enjoy. There's food that gives us nostalgia and memories. And we have to figure out which one we need at this moment in our life to serve our body.
Well, I appreciate that. And I really appreciate your mindset and your very tactical tips. Tell us where we can find out more about you if viewers want to know more about your sort of approach to coaching and really life in general.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can always connect with me on social at Shine Up Coaching. You can reach out directly to me at jenniferhobsonvp@gmail. And my website's actually on the screen. It's jenniferhobson.podia.com.
Well, Jennifer, I appreciate you. I thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. And we look forward to hopefully seeing you on another episode of Disruptive Health. Be well.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Are you nearly maxed out on your credit cards? It doesn't matter if you're using your credit cards for fun or to survive. At the end of the month, your statements come in, and you can either pay them or you can't. If you can't, late fees and interest rates get tacked on. And now you're struggling just to make the minimum payment due. Do you feel trapped? Am I talking to you? Good, because I personally researched some companies that can help you. They may be able to reduce your credit card balances by 50% and stop the late fees. If you qualify, please call our special debt hotline number right now for a complimentary free 5-minute consultation. Deal with your credit card problem now before it gets much worse and put more money back in your pocket. Trust me, I've been there too. Call right now.
Call 855-993-2096 right now. That's 855-993-2096.
Do you have diabetes? If you have insurance, you may qualify for a new continuous glucose monitor. With a CGM, you can continuously track your levels and trends, spend more time in range, significantly lower your A1C, and share important data with loved ones and caregivers. Most importantly, a CGM eliminates the one thing most people with diabetes hate: painful finger sticks. Take charge of your health. Order your new continuous glucose monitor today. If you use insulin and have seen your diabetes care provider within the last 6 months, you may qualify for a CGM today. We'll do all the insurance paperwork and deliver your new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost to you. Medicare and most insurances cover continuous glucose monitors, so don't wait. Have your insurance handy and call the CGM Health Hotline now.
Are you nearly maxed out on your credit cards? It doesn't matter if you're using your credit cards for fun or to survive. At the end of the month, your statements come in, and you can either pay them or you can't. If you can't, late fees and interest rates get tacked on. And now you're struggling just to make the minimum payment due. Do you feel trapped? Am I talking to you? Good, because I personally researched some companies that can help you. They may be able to reduce your credit card balances by 50% and stop the late fees. If you qualify, please call our special debt hotline number right now for a complimentary free 5-minute consultation. Deal with your credit card problem now before it gets much worse and put more money back in your pocket. Trust me, I've been there too. Call right now.
Call 855-993-2096 right now. That's 855-993-2096.
Hey there, welcome back to Disruptive Health. I'm Dr. Denise Brown, and joining me now in studio is JC Lopez. He's from Hona CBD. JC, welcome to the show. Super excited to chat with you about all things CBD. I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions out there. What is CBD going to get me stoned? My 80-year-old dad keeps asking me, so I have a vested interest in hearing your answer. But just welcome. We're really excited to have you.
Awesome. Pleasure to be here, Denise. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so let's just dive right in. When my dad says, "Oh, CBD scares me. I don't want to get stoned," what should I say to him?
Yeah, the primary difference really lies in the compounds of THC and CBD. THC is a psychoactive component found in marijuana that really produces that high feeling, and it binds directly with the CB1 receptors in the brain, leading to that type of euphoria. Whereas CBD, on the other hand, is non-psychoactive. It doesn't produce a high because it interacts differently with your endocannabinoid system. And really, instead of binding directly to that CB1 receptor, CBD modulates their activity, which can help reduce anxiety, inflammation, and pain, without altering your mental state. So overall, really, the compound that really makes you high or have that euphoric feeling is the compounds found in THC and not CBD. And so those are really the main differences in that.
That's super interesting. And I think one of the things that you kind of touched on just there that I'd love to kind of get at a little bit more is that we do have these natural receptors in our brains that are sort of designed for cannabinoid proteins, right? So it's already something that your brain is ready for.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'll dive a little deeper and talk about the endocannabinoid system, or the ECS. I'll probably refer to it a couple times. But really, the ECS system, the endocannabinoid system, is found in everybody's body. Your body actually naturally produces endocannabinoids or cannabinoids. And the endo is just the fact that it's made in your body. And the ECS regulates the various physiological processes to maintain balance in the body. CBD influences these CB1 and CB2 receptors found in the brain. So CBD1 is found in the brain and central nervous system, whereas CB2 is really found in immune cells or in your tissues as well. So yes, everyone has it. It's nothing that you kind of gain by just taking CBD, right? It's really just another system in your body that is very similar to how the nervous system operates.
So when you are using CBD, what would you sort of say are kind of the top 3 indications on the board? Like, what do you feel like it's best at? You mentioned a couple things that I'm really curious. Like, what would be your sort of like, oh, if you're struggling with blank, you might consider it?
The biggest thing that I really use it for is I'm an avid gym goer, and I'm sports all the way. I do all kinds of sports, tennis, golf. bodybuilding, and really, I put a lot of strain on my body. So the number one thing that I'm looking for is anti-inflammatory properties, and CBD has those anti-inflammatory properties to really help improve and overall reduce my inflammation and pain, if any. So pain and inflammation are going to be the top two that I'm really looking at, and especially mood. There's a lot of recent studies that are coming out to really see that these properties that CBD helps regulate is some of those exciting moods, right? And so if I'm overstimulated or if I'm understimulated, I usually take CBD to kind of help balance those. But overall, really, the pain and inflammation management is really what I'm looking for when taking CBD.
So I've heard about a lot of people who are sort of very active in the kind of athletic space using CBD as one of many tools in sort of your recovery kit. Let's get a little bit more specific now then. How do you take it? Are you taking it topically? Do you take it orally? Do you do both? Like, what would be sort of, if I've just run a marathon, which probably is never going to happen, but let's pretend, what would be the way that I would sort of go about that?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways. You can take it orally. You can take there's edibles, there's topicals, there's sublingual. Sublingual is just CBD oil. You place it under your tongue and let it digest that way, or let it absorb that way in your body. But the different ways that you take it really depend on kind of the bioavailability that you're looking for, and it's also influenced by the dosage that you're actually taking as well. So the way that I take it, it's really through gummies method. It's great. It's probably the best way if you're taking it. If you're taking it orally, the bioavailability in that is longer lasting than typical CBD oils, right? And so because of the first pass metabolic stages. So without getting too scientific around here, really there's your body metabolizes these CBDs, or the CBD, in a lot of different ways. And really what I'm looking for whenever I'm doing this is, especially training, right, is I'm going to take it orally before the gym to kind of help relax my body and help get my mood set right. So that way I'm really focusing on the mind and muscle connection. And then if I'm having any joint pains, or typically after a bench or doing some back weights, really I'm going to have some pains in my joints. And so if I do have those type of joint pains, I'm really looking for topical, so that way I'm getting it right where I need it. And the bioavailability is also different when placing it on your body rather than taking it ingestally.
Sure.
So those are a couple ways that I take it, but I typically use both.
I love it. So you might do a little bit pre as kind of part of your workout preparation, and then afterwards maybe topical on some sore spot or something like that. That's actually really interesting. I appreciate that. So the other thing I feel like I hear people use CBD a lot for is kind of calming and anxiety. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's been a lot of different studies in the minor cannabinoids and major cannabinoids. So just to kind of take a step back, there are over 150 different types of cannabinoids that have been researched through some of these. And what a lot of scientists are really looking at now is how can it really influence the serotonin and dopamine levels when taking CBD, and how can we really regulate and balance that mood, right? And so CBG is one of the number one cannabinoids that are being researched to help with the how do I say it? That, I guess, that anxiety spike. And seeing how to regulate those moods. So again, when we talk about the CB1 receptor in your endocannabinoid system, CBD doesn't really directly bind to it. However, it does influence how other endocannabinoids, the cannabinoids that your body naturally produces to help regulate that mood. And so, yeah, CBG is one of the leading cannabinoids that are being researched into seeing how we can reduce that anxiety levels, right? And so, yeah, that's really big, and so that's something that I'm really hoping we can get more research on, especially as science continues to open back up, right?
Yeah, it's actually it's pretty cool because up until really recently, like not 2024, it was very difficult to study marijuana, right? Because marijuana has always been considered a Schedule 1 substance, and so you couldn't really study it in the lab. And so all of the sort of potential trials where you might take one medicine versus another medicine versus CBD, we've not really been able to do that, and that's recently changed. So what are you looking forward to the most, I think, now that sort of has opened up? Where do you feel like CBD goes next?
I think there's still so much studies to be done in all of the minor cannabinoids that we're kind of seeing pop up. Especially another one that I haven't talked about is CBN, which is a major one that's kind of coming into the limelight. I feel like just recently, maybe late 2023. I feel like, but CBN really helps with kind of sleep disorders, right? And so there's so many different types of CB cannabinoids that affect different types of ways that your body's trying to regulate itself. And so the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to as research continues to go on is one, understanding the efficacy and the safety profiles behind CBD through large-scale clinical trials. Additionally, one thing that we're really wanting to look at is regulatory oversight, making sure that you're getting right CBD compounds or correctly derived CBD rather, because you could get it from two types. You've touched on marijuana, but the biggest one that came into light was hemp through the 2018 Farm Bill. And so as these regulations continue to change and disrupt the pharmaceutical industry, I feel like I hope that one day we can really come to terms with big pharma and really get people off of the opioids that are kind of killing our communities around. And so through that partnership, that's what I hope that we can really see down the line. But there's just so much that is still needing to be done before we can really look at the efficacy of CBD overall.
It sounds like we've got a lot more to learn, and I'm sure that we have a lot more to learn from you, JC. We look forward to bringing you back on another episode of Disruptive Health. Sadly for now, we've got to cut to commercial, but thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us, and we look forward to talking with you again sometime. We'll cut to commercial now. Y'all be back.
Thank you.
Do you have diabetes? If you have insurance, you may qualify for a new continuous glucose monitor. With a CGM, you can continuously track your levels and trends, spend more time in range, significantly lower your A1C, and share important data with loved ones and caregivers. Most importantly, a CGM eliminates the one thing most people with diabetes hate: painful finger sticks. Take charge of your health. Order your new continuous glucose monitor today. If you use insulin and have seen your diabetes care provider within the last 6 months, you may qualify for a CGM today. We'll do all the insurance paperwork and deliver your new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost to you. Medicare and most insurances cover continuous glucose monitors, so don't wait. Have your insurance handy and call the CGM Health Hotline now.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
Well, welcome back. My goodness, didn't we learn a lot today? From Dr. Brian's nitric oxide, to Jennifer's creating new habits, to JC telling us all about CBD, we really packed a punch today. And that's what we aim to do here on Disruptive Health. There are so many things happening in the world of healthcare, and we want to make sure that you know about them. And most importantly, that you know what they mean for you. Because what we know is that all healthcare is local and all healthcare is personalized. So we aim to bring you cutting edge technology, but also tactics for importing that into your very own life. We look forward to seeing you again here next time on Disruptive Health. And until then, I'm Dr. Brown. Take care.
This has been a Now Media Networks feature presentation. All rights reserved.